Hey guys, it's Justine here from I Should Read That, and today I'm going to talk about DNFing books. For the very long time subscribers to this channel, you may remember I actually did a very similar video. It was the second one I ever did, and I haven't looked back at it because it's probably really terrible. I had no idea what I was doing, and I used to make Scottish husband sit in another room, close the door, and put his headphones on before I could even consider filming. And you know, it's now been 2 years since I started this channel, so I feel like I've come a long way, and this is kind of a important topic to talk about because I feel like there's so much discomfort around DNFing books, but it can be completely life-changing if it's something that you decide you want to do or you maybe want to try. So I wanted to bring this topic back and talk to you guys about it today because I am a huge advocate for DNFing. Everyone DNFs books in different ways. Everyone has different criteria for DNFing books, and I think that the important thing to remember if you are either watching this video or you're watching someone else's video about DNFing, if you're on Twitter seeing a thread about DNFing, whatever, no one's rules are necessarily going to 100% work for you. So if you are kind of new to deciding you want to DNF books, or if it's something that you want to get better about, sort of find what works for you. That's sort of the best way to approach it. I realize that DNFing is like a bookish acronym. So if you don't know what DNFing is, it means you did not finish a book. So at whatever point you decided that the book wasn't for you, or you didn't like it, or something was happening in it, you didn't want to continue reading it, you just put it aside and not finish it. So this is a really tough thing for a lot of people to do because a lot of people are completionists. I used to be a completionist with books. I would struggle through books until I finished them, and ultimately I'd be like, that sucked. I'm really upset that I wasted my time. Because when you're reading something that you don't like and you're not enjoying, it can have such a huge impact on sort of your reading mood. It can send you into reading slumps. It can completely turn you off of an author or a genre or whatever if you're trying something new and that particular thing doesn't work for you. I feel like there's such not a stigma around it because that's such a dramatic word, but there is a lot of discomfort around DNFing and a lot of people refuse to do it. But hopefully, if you watch this video, maybe you'll either start to do it yourself, or you'll become a little bit more comfortable with it, or you will kind of see the other side of why people do decide to DNF books. So I think the dirty little secret about DNFing that people don't talk about, which makes me laugh because I didn't even realize this until a couple of days ago, if you DNF a book, you can come back to it. And I think that that's the thing that a lot of people, including myself, tend to forget. If you DNF something, there's literally nothing in the world stopping you from picking that book up again. And often I find that if I do DNF something, usually it's because I'm not in the right mood to read it, or for whatever reason I am not enjoying it because of external factors. I don't know. So if I do pick up that book at a different time, I will probably have a better chance of enjoying it. This has happened to me recently. It's happened to me in the past. I have picked up books that I initially set aside and ended up absolutely adoring them. So I think it's really important to remember you can come back to stuff. So for me, how I kind of choose to DNF books is I have a couple of things that I have in my head that I know, if it doesn't do X, I'm not going to finish it, or if it doesn't do Y, I'm not going to finish it, whatever. But most importantly, I kind of have two categories for DNFs. I have the hard DNF and the soft DNF. So the hard DNF is the thing that I do the most often, which is I'm not going to pick this book up again for whatever reason. I didn't enjoy it, thought it was maybe terrible, or a character was driving me crazy, or I just flat out wasn't enjoying it, whatever. That usually goes toward the hard DNF, which is kind of the traditional, I'm not going to pick this book up again. I didn't like it. I was wasting my time and ruining my life by reading it. And then we have the soft DNF, which is something that I am kind of becoming a little bit more open to, which is I'm going to set this aside for a few months, a year, 2 years, whatever. I'm going to read it when I am in a sort of better mood to read it. I'm in a better place to read it maybe, or, you know, I feel like this is a book I will definitely appreciate when I'm older, which has happened, especially with classics and stuff like that. I don't often do the soft DNF. I find that's much more unusual for me, but one book that I did recently sort of decide to set aside until a better time in my life was The Heroes by Joe Abercrombie, and you may know that Joe Abercrombie is one of my favorite all-time authors. I've got my bookmark still in here. I read 294 pages of this book, which when we get to my kind of like criteria for DNFing, you will see that is much more of a chance than I give most books. And the reason I did that is because I love his books. I love his first law books. I've read 4 of them, or 4.5 of them now, and I absolutely adore them. But it was very clear to me that this was not the right time to be reading it, and I'm actually interested already in picking it up again. I only set it aside a couple of weeks ago, and the reason that I set this aside was because it's a very slow-paced book, kind of peppered in with action scenes, because it's all about not just a war, but about a battle, a single battle in this war, a huge kind of what will probably be pivotal battle. It may end the war, I don't know, I haven't finished it yet. And it's very slow. So it's kind of split into before the battle, day 1, day 2, day whatever, and then after the battle. And it was not gripping me. I was really struggling with it, all the bits in between the action sequences, which at the part that I was at, there were a lot of bits in between action sequences that were very slow. So I decided that now's not the right time, but I'm gonna pick it up again soon. I'm reading another one of his books right now, actually, and I'm really loving it. So I am feeling like I'm definitely gonna pick this up soon. I'm really glad that I did do the soft DNF at the time though, because it helped me move on to other books that I was much more interested in reading. So I don't always follow my own rules for DNFing books, and I am actually becoming a little bit more strict with myself when I do DNF stuff, because I have a huge TBR. My TBR is like 450 some odd books, give or take, and I just don't have time to try to power through books that I am not enjoying. And the number of books that I've DNF'd this year is probably up to like 10, 12, something like that. And I feel like that's really helping me. I feel like I've kind of like rejuvenated myself and rejuvenated my reading by being much more firm of being like, even if it's just like, I'm not hating this book, but it's really not gripping me, it's probably gonna be a 2.5 star book, or like a real stretch of a 3-star book, I'm just gonna DNF it. This is one of the reasons that I have a particularly high average rating on Goodreads. Most of my books that I read are 4 and 5 stars. There are a lot of 3 stars in there as well, but I don't tend to rate books 2 or 1 star, because those are the books that I DNF and I don't give those a star rating. So my main kind of rule that I've been trying to stick to much more for DNFing books is to give it 100 pages. Book has 100 pages, give or take, depending on how long it is, to capture my interest, to give me something that makes me want to keep reading it. By that 100-page mark, give or take, a book has to be doing a couple of things for me. It has to have an interesting enough plot and story, or it has to have me interested enough in where the plot is going, or where I think the plot is going, which is a little bit of a pitfall because I didn't write the book. I don't know where the plot's going, and, you know, a book should surprise me. I shouldn't be able to kind of predict that. So that's a little bit of a tougher one, but it really has to have characters, or at least one character that I'm somewhat invested in, and sometimes this is the most difficult one because there can be someone who's maybe a little bit dry and bland, but I think that maybe something interesting is gonna happen later on, which is why I have stuck with certain thriller books for longer than the 100 pages, because I'm like, come on, I know that this person has something to hide, or their backstory is gonna be really good, or something that we don't know about yet, which can be another pitfall. And it just has to have something about it. I feel like also if I know a book takes maybe 100 pages or, you know, 70 pages or so to kind of pick up and get itself going, I am going to be much more generous with something like that, which is one of the reasons that I like reviews, and I like when people talk about that kind of thing in reviews. So those are sort of the main things that I find really important. I did notice about 4 or 5 months ago that I have been really generous with not DNFing books quickly enough. I've been real generous with that 100-page rule because I am like pushing forward and trying to be like, I want to love this. I am chasing that thing that I think might be happening. Oh no, I don't enjoy this. So I have been much more brutal, and when I have DNF'd those books, so for example, I don't have it in my hands anymore, it's with a friend, but The Beholder by Anna Bright, I read about half of, and I was like, this book is making me miserable because it's not that it's bad, it's just that I am not enjoying anything that's happening in this book, and it was weird, and like I couldn't wrap my head around it, and it was taking me ages to read that, and when I finally did DNF it, it was like I had all of this desire to read again. I was avoiding reading that book because I just was not enjoying it, and it was a total slog. So I think that was the point where I realized I need to be a little bit more brutal, as I say. And one of the recent DNFs that I did do, I gave 106 pages, which is pretty much right on the money. And the reason that I DNF'd this is it, like, for me, commits one of the biggest crimes in fantasy. One of my personal pet peeves. It's a mega pet peeve, and I will instantly DNF any book that has this. I did DNF The Nightjar by Deborah Hewitt, which is a debut novel. I really wanted to love this. I've talked about this book extensively before I read it. It's in a ton of like anticipated releases videos and things like that. And the reason that I DNF this is because I have this thing about the character who has knowledge, who does not share that knowledge, and then gets pissed off at the main character or another character for not knowing what's going on. I hope that makes sense. It's one of those things that drives me crazy, absolutely crazy in fantasy. You have kind of like the mysterious, not Gandalf type character, but you know what I mean. The kind of like the person who knows the thing, who's like leading you along and won't tell you anything, and then gets angry with you and frustrated, or you get into like bad situations that you could have avoided if they sat down for 10 minutes and were like, listen, this is what's going on. Here's the story, please don't do this thing. It would make things so much easier, and this book does that. And for me, that's an instant sort of DNF. Other things that are not in this book, I will immediately DNF for a complete and total lack of women in fantasy books. So The Rage of Dragons by Evan Winter was a book I really wanted to love, but there is 2 women reportedly in it. Well, there's 3 women reportedly in it. One of them doesn't speak, she just gets raped and murdered. One of them is kind of the sexy love interest who does nothing except be sexy and teaches him some magic-y thing that she can do so that he can do it and completely like take over any role she may have in the book. And the other is apparently a very brief point of view where a female warrior's like, he's so scary, I'm the toughest warrior, whatever, but he terrifies me and then she dies or something like that. And I was just like, what the fuck is this? So stuff like that will also make me DNF a book because I just don't have time for those kinds of books that have sort of the lack of women or that are, say, racist or sexist or homophobic, stuff like that. I don't have time for that. I don't want to support those kinds of books. And although in some cases like The Rage of Dragons, I think it was really well-meaning. I don't think that there was, an intention of being like, twirling his mustache and being like, ho, I'm not gonna have any women in this book. I don't think it was poorly intentioned, but it did happen, so I decided to DNF it. Things like that. I do think that I am a lot happier with my reading, and I am reading many more things that I really truly enjoy and supporting a lot of the authors and books that I truly love by DNFing other books. And for me, it's not a rewarding thing, but the knock-on effect is rewarding for me because it means that I have more time for books that I absolutely love. We opened this video with the fact of you can always pick up a DNF'd book once again. So I wanted to close this video with another fun fact that I think is a really important thing to remember, that just because someone else doesn't like a book or does DNF a book, that is in no way, shape, or form saying that you shouldn't read it or you shouldn't like it. The thing that I do not want to happen is for someone to say, well, Justine really didn't like this book, say The Nightjar, which is a debut book I really wanted to support, it just had some stuff in it that I didn't personally like. Drives me crazy. So I don't want someone to sit there and be like, well, Justine didn't like The Nightjar and she DNF'd it, so I'm not gonna read it. That's not what I want to happen whatsoever. I always want to be honest about my opinions here, and I hope that by explaining things that I either like or don't like about books, it's going to encourage people to pick them up if it sounds like they're interesting. So for example, you know, I DNF'd The Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo. That is in no way me saying that I don't want people to pick that up. I don't want people to enjoy that book. It just means that it wasn't for me. So I think that especially when you are watching lots of, say, booktubers or people talking about books online, bloggers, Instagrammers, just because someone didn't like something or did DNF it, I don't think that that's a universal, and they didn't like that, so I shouldn't pick that up kind of thing. In the comments below, I would love to hear if you are a DNFer, if you do not DNF books, what your reasons are on either side. If you found this helpful, if you would like more kind of discussion chatty videos like this, definitely let me know. I post bookish content to this channel fairly frequently, so go ahead and hit subscribe, check back soon, and I will see you next time.